Are we back in?
Congratulations, you're today's lucky winner.
Okay, that's a terrible grainy image, but we're going to have to just roll with it. And hopefully now it's actually going to work for me. One of those last-minute planned lives, and hopefully on a regular basis, and we'll have it sorted out with better technology once I get my regular device back. I'm waiting for a comment to say, hey, you're not coming through with the audio, but who knows? Hopefully you can hear me. I can hear myself, but it's like talking to a wall. So interesting things that I've found this week. Brian is the 5th victim. Can anyone hear me? Oh, it sounds good. No. Thank you, My Nature 2, for actually letting me know the audio is coming through. hooray. Sometimes you feel like you're talking to yourself, so it's really good to know that that's coming through. I've been looking at a few things, and it's really, I'm trying to decide which one to talk about first. Let's talk about the funding for Idaho's public defender system. So as some of you might have noticed, around late 2024, Ann Taylor had resigned as the Kootenai County Public Defender and had a separate agreement to continue representation of Brian in private practice. We have sound, amazing. Now, I found this interesting because of this rabbit hole I went down and ended up back with the funding for Idaho's court system and how that might impact the Idaho 4 case. What I found is Ann Taylor's office, Ann Taylor was working for the Kootenai County Public Defender's Office. Now, the Moscow is in Latah County, and so Latah County didn't have a death penalty certified public defender. So Ann Taylor, being the nearest, was then recruited or was assigned to represent Brian Koberger in the Idaho 4 case in Latah County. Now, the billables would go through the public defender's office from Kootenai County, would bill Latah County for Ann's time. Now, around 2024, the state of Idaho decided to centralise all of their public defenders to have the state public defender's office managed by the governor. Now, quite rightly, Ann had a few issues with that, saying that there would be a little bit too much political influence, perhaps, in the public defender's office, because there was a lot of argument around funding indigent defence. So there's some money issues. Anyway, she gets an agreement to continue representing her active cases after her contract ended, which was late 2024, I believe. I was hoping to have receipts. Tonight, my device has been in the shop with Apple getting some repairs done, so we're winging it. I'm just going to have to tell you this verbatim and maybe pull up some links if I can find them. So the Kootenai County Public Defender's Office is billing Latah County for Ann's representation of Brian on the case. She then has an agreement once that contract ends. She doesn't want to work for the Public Defender's Office anymore because the funding would be too politicised, to put it as gently as possible. So they fund her to continue representing Brian, and she does still to this day, which says to me the case is not closed. You'll find her signature on any of the recent documents in the case. Although there haven't been that many recently, it is still there. Now, if it was all well and done, the case wouldn't be listed on there anymore. It would be closed, it would be off, and they'd move on to other cases. Now, the reason I bring up the funding, and it's boring as batshit really, but the Kootenai County Public Defender's Office and the Kootenai County State Prosecutor's Office, along with many other departments, are funded by a Board of Commissioners. So the BOCC, the Board of County Commissioners, Kootenai County, and I find this interesting because they are the decision makers. So each year around this time, they are deciding what funding goes where for different departments, and they have pictures. There have been some issues with that particular committee. I'm looking at my notes. So if we look at this, we have Ann Taylor, Kootenai County Public Defender, being funded in this, decisions for funding made by this particular commissioners. You have Stanley Mortensen and the state prosecutor for Kootenai County, the county prosecutor for Kootenai County, Stan Mortensen, also having his funding decisions made by the same group. And you also have Sheriff Bob Norris and his Sheriff's Office funding coming from the same group. what I'm looking at in that is that up until recently, there was a commissioner by the name of Bill Brooks. Bill Brooks has quite a bit of a background in Secret Service, I believe. I'm just going to see if I can pull up. Can we get a browser? Come on. Screen share. I'm just going to open a new tab. Let's see if we can get that. Select window or screen. Mozilla Firefox, and we are going to go to, not that one. Okay, so excellent. That's actually worked. Wild. Okay, so now let's get this new tab over to here, down back to there, and we're going to look at I did have all the receipts on my laptop on a hard drive somewhere, but instead we're just going to have to Google it ourselves now. Bill Brooks, Kootenai County Commissioner. Let's have a look at this. Here we are on the Kootenai County page. Bill served in the US Army Security Agency as a linguist and interrogator during Southeast Asian conflict. He held a top-secret special intelligence security clearance. After his military service, he attended the University of Illinois and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology with a concentration in advanced Bayesian statistics. During his tenure at the University of Illinois, Bill founded and administered the Central Illinois Consumer Services, Consumer Protection, blah, 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 blah. So we have someone who held top secret special intelligence security clearance in the 3-member board of county commissioners, making all the decisions for the sheriff's office, the prosecutor, the public defender's office. You might not think that's anything to be too concerned about, but I'd also point out that his son-in-law, Brent Gillespie, was in the military, 75th Ranger Regiment, 82nd Airborne. So both Brett Payne, Brent Kopacker, and Brent Gillespie were all 82nd Airborne. Now that's a very big troop. I don't know the military language. It's a big organization. Now, from what I'm trying to find out, and it's very scarce information, I'm going to put chat about there so I can see it. Trusted source. Well, we try and bring receipts, right? So it's very difficult to find military service records for certain individuals, Brett Payne. But what I can... Where do I even go with this? Because what I'm trying to point out is there's certain people on the Kootenai County Board of County Commissioners making funding decisions for all of the local agencies involved in the case. So Public Defender's Office, Sheriffs, Law Enforcement. They have a lot of power. 3 people have a lot of power. Now, there was a lot of contention there with him and Brent Regan. Let me just see if I can find Brent Regan's background. Now, Brent and, here we go. Republican Central Committee, and we'll have a look at this one, and we'll have a look at this one. Interesting from, let me see, can I make this one visible? No. I was hoping to pin that pin message. Is that going to appear? maybe. So, aquamarine sailing, you asked about, hang on, wrong one. Aquamarine sailing asked about, so Mortensen has a hand in funding. Isn't he Dylan's uncle? We don't know, to be honest. It's a little bit odd, unusual, like many things in this case, that the Mortensen name. Now, what I did have somewhere, and look, maybe we do another live stream next week and we'll start getting in the flow to actually have things working, all the tech working and the information with us. So Stanley Mortensen used to be a lecturer, I wouldn't say professor, but a tutor or a lecturer at BYU, Brigham Young University. Brother Mortensen, he introduced himself as. There's a whole other side of what's going on in the Pacific Northwest, in my opinion, and from what I'm finding out piece by piece, around the Church of Latter-day Saints and some of the church following and the embedding of certain figures in positions of power, kind of linking back to the Board of County Commissioners for Kootenai County, because Brent Regan, Bill Brooks, trying to remember the other name because I'm without my information, but I'm going to use my secret weapon of Google Gemini. And yes, I do use AI, but I ask it to provide some facts with it as well. Let's just have a look here. You might see into my brain somewhere here. So I'm going to hide that, and we're going to look at Kootenai County Board of Commissioners, ex-California. Yeah, you do got to watch out for the cults. Hence the intro video to these sessions. So we have Leslie Duncan, District 3 Commissioner, Southern California Public Safety, before moving to Hayden, Idaho, 10 years in law enforcement, criminal investigator, reserve police officer, range master. Okay. We have Bob Norris, the Sheriff Bob Norris, heavily intertwined with Board of Commissioners on county operations and budgets. Prominent example of ex-California political contingent in Kootenai County, LAPD, LA Sheriff's Department background. Norris retired as a lieutenant from LA County Sheriff's Department after a 30-year career in California law enforcement before moving to North Idaho and winning the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. So let's look at more on Bob Norris background. I'd type it in longer form, but I really can't. I don't have the energy tonight. So following the events of September 11, Norris was selected to lead an anti-terror team at the newly established Joint Regional Intelligence Centre. In his capacity, he held a top secret clearance managing personnel and resource logistics alongside federal agencies like the FBI and CIA. As part of his counter-terrorism training, he also participated in a specialised joint program in Israel with Mossad and Shin Bet. Now, take it with a grain of salt. This is Wikipedia. If I had more hours in a day, I'd find all the receipts. But it's interesting to see that we have two people who are, one is sorting out the funding, one is the local sheriff, both with extensive past professional experience with top secret clearance. And people wonder why we think this is a fucking psyop. Hi Marissa, you're not that late to the party. I literally have only just turned things on. I wasn't even going to get started for another half an hour, but I'm just glad to actually get things turned on tonight. Jodie Lee, hello, says, unfortunately, the real purpose in this case will never come to light because they were big names and come from old money. Rabbit hole runs so deep you could never get them. Yeah, and so many different rabbit holes. All the rabbits have come out. I'm just going to go back to a question from Sarah Kowalski, 5499. Jeremy Regan, bro or dad? You're talking about Brent Regan and his... So Brent Regan, I'll get to. If this device is going to work. KCRCC. Okay, so this is one. Marissa, absolutely. Now you're welcome to email us about email us truthneurons@gmail.com. I'll put it in chat. Starting from next week, I'll actually have the device back and we'll be doing these things normally. So we're winging it tonight. If you'd like to jump on a live and chat, quite happy to do that as well. Serving a life sentence for a murder case and she did not do it. Now you've got my attention, Marissa. We will definitely have to chat about that. Very interested to see what dots we can connect. So here's where I'm trying to get to with what I found in here is we've got this. If you think about Kevin Bacon and the 6 degrees of separation or 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, there's always a link between things, whether they're at a few different connections or not. The reason that I looked here is I was looking at certain things that were happening in the North Idaho region. So okay, I think it was on Birdie's show talking to him about it. Absolutely. Send me an email and Ruby and I will certainly be interested to chat to you further about it. So Hardline Idaho Freedom Foundation. So how many in chat have heard of the Idaho Freedom Foundation? Board chair for influential Hardline Idaho Freedom Foundation. So Brent Regan, who okay. So I've got these two different groups. So the Kootenai County got transferring it to state level. See, the funding for me just goes all over the place, but there's a lot in. Okay, so the Idaho Freedom Foundation means its policy influence continues to shadow the box decision making. Now, being on the other side of the planet, it's very difficult to know enough about these things. So Idaho Freedom Foundation. I did do all this research previously and was hoping to have it ready for tonight. But anyway, so it's a polarizing non-profit political apparatus in Idaho, 2009, former journalist Wayne Hoffman, hardline conservative and libertarian public policy think tank in Boise. Uses a blend of aggressive public shaming, legislative scoring, and a network of allied lawmakers to enforce strict party discipline on the right. So yes, now I'm going backwards through the way that I came in to this. We were looking at the influence of mass media on the Idaho 4 case and some of the people in North Idaho, their backgrounds. Let's have a look. Freedom Family Agenda, so eliminating public education funding. I think it was actually this particular group in the KCRCC who were exactly, Sarah, lobbyists. They're all absolutely lobbying for their own thing. There was some issues with certain representations of these people attending white supremacy events, essentially, to cut it short. So the IFF, Idaho Freedom Foundation. Okay, it sits directly at the center of a massive factional rift within the Idaho Republican Party. On one side, we have the MAGA warriors who favor complete systemic spending cuts and absolute ideological purity. On the other is a coalition of traditional, business-minded, mainstream conservative Republicans, such as Idaho Leaders United, North Idaho. So they seem to have quite a legit or a gimmick. No, this is 100% legit. I just wish I actually had my notes, which are on my device that I don't have. So we're going to go through it this way. So let provide a bio of LA area journalists who moved to North Idaho. So I'm trying to remember the name. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Moved to North Idaho and took up positions of influence in the region. Come on, you're going to find it. Mark Thurman, former detective for the LAPD, 1995 O.J. Simpson murder trial. So Thurman became a spokesperson for crime reporting. News Nation, KXLY. So this one here was interesting because Mark Thurman being... How did I get to Mark Thurman? This is a very interesting live to do because I'm going backwards through where I found, which was around the funding and the influence of the Board of County Commissioners and the Kootenai County Regional Chair, whatever it is, and the Idaho Freedom Foundation, the hard right, to find that Los Angeles PD, 1995 O.J. Simpson murder trial. Now, Los Angeles PD, we're also looking at Sheriff Bob Norris and a number of others. It seems to be this migration pattern for that sort of, dare I say, a creature to migrate from LAPD or LA Sheriff's Department and other agencies to the North Idaho region. And it quite possibly could be related to the Greater Idaho movement. That's a whole other kettle of fish. Like, I've gone down the rabbit hole on this, as you can see. So the reason I'm looking at this is that there are a number of LA people. So, say, for example, a lawyer, Mark Thurman, LAPD detective, and then becomes a spokesperson. So he was a former detective, household name during the O.J. Simpson murder trial. We've got Orange County, Ronald Rankin. Now, Orange County comes up really interesting. This is where we go down the rabbit hole another step. Were any of the ex-LAPD involved in the investigation of hashish smuggling from Lebanon in speaker cases / computer shells? Random question to ask. Misspelled shells, it should be fine. Noisiest keyboard in the world, but we'll bear with it. Lucy Morningstar, that is interesting. How about the time Bloom said BK took 2 vials and planted unknown males at the scene? And look, we've got a whole bunch of stuff we're looking at the moment around the vampire trend of people who their identity is vampire. There is some research, I think, Ruby. No. There's a researcher looking at people who identify as people who identify as vampires, but they don't want to come out in public because of the shaming, and that happens to be around that North Idaho region, perhaps. That's a whole other story. Let's continue with quick question.
Yeah.
And we are live, so
okay, sure. I'm not coming in here.
Okay. Quick
quick
question.
Yep.
We're asking about the vampire stuff.
Oh my god.
The people who identify as vampires. Do you remember there was a researcher looking into it?
Just throw me under the bus. I'm not sure. I'd have to have a look.
We've gone down so many rabbit holes in this case.
It's a little bit macabre.
Vanessa, you've stumbled across
I think
an interesting community. I'm just responding to.
Sure. Yeah. I think perhaps some of the puncture marks on the bodies and things might be interesting to look at.
Puncture marks on the
autopsies. Yeah.
We could go in 6 different directions at once, being neurodiverse, but I'm just going to. Look, I could go full Australian, mate, if you wanted, and then we can chat about Australia, but that's not the point of this live. We're going to stick to the script that is not actually there. We have no script tonight. We're flying by the seat of our pants. So what I'm looking at, Howard Marks and the Brotherhood connection. So if you don't know about the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, I am putting a video together. It's about let's just read what it says. Brotherhood of Eternal Love originally operated out of Southern California, fracturing into independent cells. And they started with marijuana, growing dope. Then they wanted to import hashish, and they were smuggling that in. They got into LSD. The researcher looking into wrote a book with Brian's professor. Yes. Thank you, my nature. 100%. I just can't. Sounds way off track. We are way off track. Don't worry about it. We're not. There is no track, so we can't be way off a track. Now, this is the reason I say this, and the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, there's this big movement in the late 1970s, or in the 70s, through to they start smuggling hashish in speaker shells and all sorts of ways to import drugs from an international distribution pipeline. And yes, this is off-piste. This is just looking at some loose threads. However, California, where many of the people in this case have come from, have past residences in Vegas. We're just going to look at what is it? Statute of limitations. Now, I found this interesting because I was in a whole other space. Yes, we are back up and running. California, Texas, and Florida, huge states, lots of money, big drug problems. Yes, 100%. Mexican mafia is the big link for me, and we'll look into that more in a later one. However, the massive indictment in California around Mexican mafia, then to some of the more recent arrests in northern, say Pacific Northwest, because it's Washington and Idaho, Oregon, is really interesting. There's some crossover there. So now I'm not saying this is Stephen Anthony Goncalves Sr., father of Steve Goncalves. Always get the pronunciation wrong. Apologies to anyone. Interesting, Lucy. Lucy Morningstar says, Nathan Goncalves quote from 2010 stunt at Clark College. I'm here to tell you the Nationalist Socialist movement is not about hatred, it's about love. It's about love. A brotherhood of eternal love, or a family of love, or an army of love, maybe. Just too many little coincidences like that have me making a tinfoil hat out the back between trying to get things set up. So the interesting thing, the timing works. The age of Stephen Goncalves Sr., born 1951, living in California. And then there's a Stephen Anthony Goncalves living in California around that exact age, who is the money guy for an operation where they were smuggling hashish in from Lebanon inside fiberglass parcels in speaker cabinets, and another one where they were doing it in computer shells. I'm glad you think I'm on point because, yeah, King Gonzo, I have a file somewhere and I've been digging through it where it looks like it is a speech written to potentially some Freemasons or some sort of cultish organisation like that ends with King Gonzo. Vanessa, I don't think we can rule that one out either. If we're looking at someone in the house is a confidential informant, if we're looking at the autopsy reports and the markings made on those bodies, if we're looking at the secrecy and the sealing in the case, if we're looking at all of these put together, we need to buy more tinfoil because this is not a normal case. There's 100% it's not a normal case. Rollo Motor said he was incarcerated between Manson and Siren in prison cells. Okay. That would be interesting. And look, Canada is interesting. So the reason that I bring this up, this hashish importation, it's around the right time, late 1970s. There's a case in Las Vegas, state of Las Vegas, against Stephen Anthony Goncalves around being money courier. Now, that case went back to the appellate court because it had expired the statute of limitations, a 5-year period between bringing charges and what have you. So they basically the person, the Stephen Anthony Goncalves of this hashish trafficking case, had evaded capture for 5 years and then argued in court that the statute of limitations had run out, so there was nothing that anyone could do. Interestingly, that led to there being a different approach in terms of the statute, new laws being put in place around the statute being paused until someone is seen to be actively cooperating with police, I believe. Yeah, that Justine DeVoe says, I'm sure he loves that name. I saw in a video yesterday Steve arrogantly say, I don't watch the news, I make it. That is one of my favourite clips from Ashley.
I can't get things to work to write comments, but
okay. Canada. Let's have a look at Canada. So I just wanted to bring that up because this particular timing of the investigation happening in Vegas San Diego. So there was two. There's one in Las Vegas. There's one in San Diego. San Diego case. Lucy, who knows? It could be, this is the thing, there are a lot of links to the Aryan Knights. Now, Quinn Kelly's father, can't remember his first name, but yes, he's one of the Aryan Knights in some of the indictments. Here's one, 1975. We're going back a few years, but now the reason for the misspelling being a Portuguese name, from what I've been reading, is sometimes it's misspelled because the names are gathered through wiretap investigations. So it could be spelled any particular way. So 1976, co-conspirators successfully indicted, tried, convicted in San Diego. Completely left out of initial San Diego indictments, his role as the alleged mastermind only came to light later after federal agents extensively interrogated co-conspirators. December 76, a federal arrest warrant. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily Steve and Anthony Goncalves Sr., Steve Goncalves' father, but given the surrounding things, the Nathan Goncalves and his court issues with domestic violence and his parents, interesting, and methamphetamine case that Nathan was involved in. There's a lot of other stuff. Showed my notes. That is not one we need. What we're going to talk about, what I was going to talk about, we're talking about how close northern Idaho is to the Coeur d'Alene region. Don't know if you've heard about this. So I wonder if there's a video we can play, if the video is going to, audio from this is going to come through, hopefully. Let's see if this is going to work. If I start playing this, can someone comment to say, is the audio coming through? Okay, if the audio is not coming through, then I will kick us out of there. Let's drop that back. Bummer. Maybe another time I will have that video lined up with some actual audio. But at around the same time, let me just have a look. Where are we? 1 year ago, 2024. This was a crazy, crazy lab. Let's go full screen. We'll just jump to some of the things where, okay, so prior to this, there was a lot of the operations where fentanyl precursors would get sent From China down to Mexico, 2022, ice cracking down. Yes, Lucy Hayden at Aryan Nations Mansion. Sarah, just saying, if you're a white trafficker backed by high-level officials, you're going to be a smooth operator, especially if you've got a badge and a gun. Just drive through the checkpoint. Quite easy then. Now, look, this is Idaho 4 and not Idaho 4. We are talking about the coincidences that happen around this case. Too many freaking coincidences, in fact. Now, I'd like to, I'll leave that one up. One of the other things that happened, another coincidence. There was a young female who was pulled over by ICE. Who does that look like? Just happens to be pulled over, and we're looking at, this was, now is there a war against people with the same surname? We could be looking at some of the issues with Joshua Hurwitz, the high intensity drug trafficking area in the region. Well, here's the stage. Yes. There's some very interesting movements, and I just wish I had my notes with us, because this would be a lot easier if I wasn't just talking ad lib. I'm going to see if I can pull up. Where am I going to find it? If I stop sharing this screen and go back to my giant head, I'll find the thing and then I'll jump back into this. So the other question I have, if we're looking at all the weird coincidences, and we're looking back again, this is how I ended up in looking at the Board of County Commissioners, Kootenai County, circling right back now, is the coroner and the medical examiner. So if we look at let me just see if I can find my notes and if it comes up. There's a lot of issues with the Idaho Coroner's Office. I think on our channel we've got a couple of videos Ruby and I've put together around the coroner. And okay, so Lucy, is that serious? Around Lucy Morningstar's put a comment. Josh left his US attorney position, joined Holland and Hart. Holland and Hart represented UI specific to the redactions of FOIA information requesting University of Phoenix purchase. Because we know there's the body cam video with Lanier and Payne. Ruby and I were looking at it just before, that they're talking about the Tyson Barrett having a video conference with President Green and others that morning about there being a vandal alert before almost anything. So where are we looking? Late December 2025, Dr. Veena Singh. Okay, so let me just share this screen again. This is interesting. I go to this one and bring in something, screen share. The abrupt cancellation of outside autopsies to the Spokane Medical Examiner's Office. A blowout between Dr. Veena Singh and Kootenai County Coroner Duke Johnson. So I found this interesting, of the issues around, if I had audio for videos, there's a couple of videos on the coroner's office and some of the issues. In fact, there's definitely overlap between the coroner Johnson, Duke Johnson, the Board of County Commissioners, who would be the funding decision makers, and Stanley Mortensen. There was a town hall, Kootenai County town hall meeting, where they were talking about needing an autopsy lab in the wake of Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office cancelling the contract. I just find it interesting regarding the ambiguity regarding some of the comments in these reports, and whether there was some coercion applied to some of the reports, if we're going to wear our tinfoil hat, because there's some interesting timing around a number of these. And there's also a Johnson surname right there as well. Maybe not. There's a common surname. I haven't had enough sleep or enough hours in the day to actually find if there was any familial genealogical links there, but found it very interesting regarding the difference between the police reports, the autopsy reports, the actual information getting out there, and then the evidence that we see. So again, funding from very hard right conservative county commissioners who are ex-LAPD, and the Goncalves family are also ex-California. Just saying, this is a very vague discussion, and I'm not even going to call it. It's more of a monologue because I can't hear anyone. I'd love to have one of you on to chat about these things, and we can just dive into wherever. However, morning from Oklahoma, from Okie dokie Lisa. Two Mortensen families did come over on the same boat as Jason Jensen's kin and the Green. Jason Jensen's not a name I'm familiar with. I did notice there was some Jenkins, both Pullman Police, then into WSU. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing it. While I stop sharing that, I'm going to see if I can find one of my documents on this, which I put together some time ago regarding WSU. Because at the end of the day, what do we know? We know Brian was working as a security officer at Pleasant Valley School. So he was a security officer. He was studying, he moves into studying at DeSales University, does a Masters of Criminal Justice. Now they have a very strong, long-standing relationship with Department of Homeland Security. Within the Department of Homeland Security, you have ICE, DEA. Is DEA in there? You have multiple agencies: Customs and Border Protection, ICE, Transport Security Administration. The list goes on. And there's a very well-established internship placement program through both DeSales and other universities that specialise in criminal justice, homeland security. So theoretically, it's possible that Brian was interested. Those opportunities are well promoted and advertised at DeSales. But you're like, we don't have anything in the documents. There probably are two. Yeah, I don't even know. Critic Rook, I am all over the place tonight. Had tech issues. There might be two lives running. I'm just trying not to touch anything right now, so this live keeps running. So remind me, where were we getting to? Talking about DeSales. It is possible it is possible that there was a placement, an internship of some sort. And yes, we saw there was an application to the Pullman Police Department for the graduate research assistantship in public safety, which was a WSU funding partnership thing. He might have already been over there, because if you look at the timing of Brian's in Pennsylvania, and I think it was around 6 months prior to the end of his studies of the master's, he resigns from his role. Now, the conversation around, there were some issues, blah, 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 and they said, you need to resign or we'll have to bring in a HR or human resources or something, is complete bullshit, because the actual proof that people have been putting out there online is boilerplate legal standard contracts for public employment in Pennsylvania. It is standard boilerplate template words, not anything specific to Brian as an individual. It's so that the employee knows they have certain rights when resigning, and not to try and conflate the things. So he resigns. There's 6 months left in his studies. He wants to focus on his studies. So he's at DeSales University. For the last 6 months of a master's program, generally you're going to have a practicum. You're going to have some kind of placement, internship that might roll into some form of employment. The tinfoil hat just gets bigger and wider every time I look at this case. I'm going to see if I can open up one of these slides around. Bear with me one tick. The problem with a case like this is when we start putting information together, we go down the rabbit hole, and we have, I think at last count, I have over 230,000 files. Not all just the case files, but stuff I've saved. Makes it a little bit of a pain in the ass to find anything, to be honest. Let's have a look. Let's go up one from there. Pullman, Washington. Is it going to be in here? I don't know if these videos are going to play, so I'll have to go for one of the documents. Okay, that's not it. You're all incredibly patient. Let's their video files as well. Okay, let's see if I can full screen this. Whoa, screen is going nuts. Okay, I think we're good. Fit to page. Let's try and share that far out. I'll add in. Okie doke. Some slides put together about Washington State University Police Department. So the trial of Brian Koberger starting around then. My God, that's page 40. Let's go back. Apologies for the flickering. Let's see if we can get this to the start. Doctoral level. Interesting, Sarah. I mean, both Ruby and I are neurodiverse. I have both ADHD and autism, as you might be able to tell from my random jumping all over the place through tonight's live. Leslie and Billy just said, did you guys know that Marilyn Monroe is really Jean Mortensen? The Mortensen Peter family genealogy line goes back quite a way in Utah, Idaho. That might be a discussion for another live when I've actually got my notes together. Here's a document I found around the doctoral level graduate research assistantship for public safety. Now, in this role, he got interviewed for it April 12th, 2022. He's still in Pennsylvania at that time. Coordinated between the Washington State University Department of Criminology, the City of Pullman, and the City of Pasco. So it works independently under supervision of Complex Social Interactions Lab Director, coordinates activities with their respective police department and other stakeholders, database design, blah, 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 blah. And Jenkins was very nervous when he was talking about the interviews for this. Complex Social Interactions Lab. You know, if instead of a Lantra finding suspects, it was bushy eyebrows, you know, there's a guy. Anyway, that's just my thought. Axon are the body cameras. So Mackin attended the Axon conference in June, gave a presentation with Chief Jenkins of Pullman about value of converting body-worn camera footage into actionable data. The problem might be that the people converting the body-worn camera footage into actionable data like to decide what data they action and what they don't. David Mackin, no. Okay, next. So July 2022, Gary Jenkins retires. July 2022, guy in the bottom right, Matt Kurt, was a while earlier had sexual intercourse with students, sexually assaulted WSU students on campus in uniform. And the other three mugshots on this page are the seniors, Chief Bill Gardner, top right, Assistant Chief Steve Hansen, bottom left, and Captain Mike Larson, who did not report this to the university. They dealt with it internally. And they all resigned pending investigation. Now, here's the thing that really gives me the shits, is looking at all of the Office of Investigator General, I think it is, OIG. If you resign, if you're in a public office and you resign when you start getting investigated, they have no power to make you participate in the interview. You're basically like, so you're not my problem anymore. That's messed up. Oh, hi, Harsh. I am winging it tonight. If anyone's just joined us, literally wing it. But one of the things that, the reason I've pulled up these slides is the timing of this. If we go back to talking about graduate research assistantship, the fact that there is a strong relationship between Homeland Security and DeSales University for internships. So whether or not he got this job or not is questionable. Certainly this guy, Jenkins, was very nervous in that interview about Brian interviewing for the job and whether or not he got it. But shortly after Brian arrives at WSU, the chief of police, the assistant chief of police, and the captain all resign while they're under investigation because they did not report Matt Kurt in the bottom right, who was sexually assaulting students on campus in uniform. Now, being neurodiverse, we tend to have a thing where we look at data and we find things in data because we go down the rabbit hole. It's called hyperfocus. And goddamn, we do a lot of that. My theory, and this is just wild, I have no proof because we don't have the proof of Brian starts, let's say he gets a research assistantship, and the first thing he looks at is police data from WSU. And then he says, hey, there's some anomalies here, shows it to the university, and they go, WTF. And they start this investigation, and certain people resign. Just a theory. Then in August 2022, David Duke pulls over Brian Koberger. I think that was the David Duke one. And then October, Brian Koberger is pulled over again. WSU campus police. Gardner is so sussy. I've got some other stuff on them. There was a link to one of those police heads that was around an online forum for, shall I say, deviants, and his username was something like the Real Boner one. It was. I decided to exclude that from these slides, but that can be for another day. November 1st, 2022. So the captain, the assistant captain, the chief, the assistant chief, and the captain all resign because the university started investigating WSU PD based on this guy's actions. And then he goes, I don't have any protection anymore. He resigns, start of November. And so 12 days between that and the homicides. Not saying they're directly connected. November 15, investigators announce murder weapon is a fixed blade knife. November 16, the attack is termed targeted. Now, just a theory. This may or may, it's just to throw it in the mix with every other damn theory in this case. November 17, autopsies reveal victims were likely asleep. Some had defensive organs. Now, we have to take all of these statements with a grain of salt, being that they come from mainstream media, because that we know is complete bullshit. 1920, police publicly clear several individuals, surviving roommates, rideshare driver, and friends who are at the scene are not considered suspects. What the actual fuck? Because we know. I mean, I put these slides together, there you go, around August 2025. How much has changed from what we knew back then to what we know now? Investigators find no credible evidence the victim Kaylee Goncalves had a stalker, despite early tips suggesting one. CBS, you're full of shit, because she did. There's a whole Winco thing, etc., etc. November 25th, 113 pieces of physical evidence collected sent to Idaho State Police Crime Lab for analysis. Now, I find this interesting. If we just go back a couple of slides. So we have the homicides on the 13th. Investigators announce the murder weapon is believed to be a fixed blade knife. An edged weapon, though no weapon is recovered. In the video we did recently on the DNA, or the live I did with Glitch DNA about this particular fixed blade knife, or the sheath of it, and a previous video I did on the DNA itself, it was November 16, 17, that the forensics lab were actually told about it. Before that, it was Gilbertson and Payne. Yeah. Police clear several individuals on November 1920. Of course they do. And more bullshit from CBS. 113 pieces. Now, the evidence collected prior to the forensics team actually going there and doing the actual forensics was collected and handed to Payne, apparently, who stored it in Moscow's evidence locker. And we all know about the chain of custody issues. Late November 2022, investigators review surveillance footage. FBI forensic video analyst determines a white Hyundai Elantra. And then initially as 2011 to 2013, so this is late November 2022. I couldn't get an exact date. November 29, thank you, Jen. It was great fun talking to Audrey. So November 29, and it just happens to be a Washington State University police officer who found Brian's Hyundai Elantra. Which brings us into question of how involved was Washington? Everyone's looking at Moscow at this time, and yet all of these activities in the case are happening in Washington. And then they lose the footage, the surveillance footage of around 13 hours, I think it was, of them tracking Brian's movements back to Pennsylvania. They just have those two very convenient body cam clips. TJ, yes, realistically, the cops did have it in for BK. December 17, investigators in Idaho, having collected surveillance, are closing in. Now, I don't know if I put it in there by this time. FBI is investigating. So many issues with this. But going back to this one, developing lab results, DNA, no crime scene, surveillance of Koberger in Pennsylvania and run records checks. God bless you. ABC News. Bushy eyebrows, for fuck's sake. He had no criminal history. They secure a search warrant for his cell phone on December 23rd. And yet again, CBS with the false facts. FBI agents and Pennsylvania police retrieved trash from the Koberger's family home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. Now, interestingly, the evidence log for the trash pool actually has, I would need to pull it up, but it's not Albrightsville. It's nearby. Now, is that because they took the trash? Very strange, because is it because they took the trash to a waste collection centre or something and mark it as that? Because the actual location of those evidence items was not Albrightsville. I'm going to have to make some notes and come back to this in a following live as to where that discrepancy is and if we can find the details, because otherwise I'll just stare blankly at you all for a few hours while I figure it out. Theory Brian is investigating the prison is moot, says Love 992. He's in segregation. Yeah, I don't think he's investigating the prison. I mean, we could go with a full tinfoil hat theory of is he actually even in there. He had a great tan the last time he was in court. Okay. Saeed and Kobergers. Interesting. Brian Wolf's book he published in 2019. Haven't heard of that one. We'll have a look at that. Okay. Plans made with FBI. Now, FBI, if you look closely at the signature, and signatures are a weird thing in this case. Let's see, is this going to... Can I share something if I go and switch over to this? No, not that one, not that one. Here we go. Mike McCarty, FBI, Pennsylvania. So this is the signature, Special Agent at US Department, Bureau of Industry and Security. Digital Forensic Examiner. This is the guy that signed from the FBI that signed the documents in Pennsylvania. And I just find it interesting regarding that why would someone from industry and security, an interesting department. I've got some notes. Lives in Murphy, North Carolina. There's too many Murphys in this case as well. Do we all agree Murphy's a dog? I've got questions. Anyway, I digress. Let's go back. Where are we? One of these? No. Here, December 29th. William Schaefer, look at what's happening now to the cops on Karen Reid case are all getting sprung for years and years of shit. Well, TJ, yes, the Karen Reid case, we haven't even looked at. There's too much we've been digging on the Idaho 4 case. And it's got to come back. We can talk about the recent, was it Commonwealth versus Hunter, around the rights of appeal when there's, oh, come on, brain. We'll come back to that maybe. Pre-dawn rain, December 30th. Taken into custody without incident. At the same time, search warrant executed on the residence and white Elantra. So they have a search warrant on the Elantra in Pennsylvania. It happens to be Dawn Daniels, the deputy of Jenkins, who does the search at Koberger's apartment. Yes, they aren't the local police force, but there's a lot of... so Dawn Daniels becomes the fill-in for Jenkins when Jenkins resigns and then moves to WSU, and then gets formally appointed to the chief of police for Pullman. Okay, so moving on. Extradition on January the 3rd. Agrees to be transported to Idaho. A lot quicker than driving back. Handed over to Idaho officials, booked into Latah County Jail in Moscow. Court issues a sweeping gag order. Now, interesting on the timing of the gag order, because if we go back to the arrest on December 30th and the big press release that had President Green and Fry, Lanier, and the Idaho State Police guy who is also a Bill Gardner. Don't know if that's the same Bill Gardner. Happens to also have the name Bill Gardner, funnily enough. It's not surprising because December 30th, the Idaho court's probably going to be closed on the 31st. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, maybe. But as soon as it reopens, there's a sweeping gag order. Interesting timing. New evidence is the hair in Ethan's hand. And that lovely family who are now partnering with law enforcement to help DNA testing be done, yet they don't want proper DNA testing done in their own case. Questionable. Probable cause affidavit January 5th. Okay, these are old slides. Interesting. January 10, Washington search warrant, Dawn Daniels. Multiple hair strands, one possible animal hair. Now, those hair strands, there was none that matched any of the victims, any of the residents, not even the dog. Zero. None were Murphy's. Okay, so the point of this was to look at the interesting timing of, interesting timing of WSU. November 1st, Matt Kurt resigns after all of the chief of police and everyone resign, and 12 days later, a WSU police officer finds Brian's Elantra. I don't know. Here's a theory as wild and as possibly plausible as many of them is, what if there was a thing happening at Washington State University, and God forbid there has been, not just from Greek life, but also within the university, for some assault, some issues there. And what happens if there was some vengeance wanted by someone and they happen to have good mates who are still in that particular police force? Just a theory. Yeah, as chief of police, Daniels is committed to fostering trust and transparency. Well, looking forward to when that happens. We're now a year and a half past when that particular report came out, and we still don't have any. Death penalty upheld, hearings continue, trial. Okay, so random document, but I was just interested, we were talking about the police, and Washington State University. Now, there's a lot of I'm going to have to bring some of these points up in a later live because I don't have the device. I don't have my documents in front of me other than some of my old docs. But the Brady violation that Thompson reported. Now, I don't know if this is the Brady violation that Thompson was talking about, but let me just see if I can bring it up here. Random thought bubbles coming to my head. If anyone's got a specific thing they want me to discuss. Okay, that's really weird that it comes up with a movie. Brianna Banks. Okay, let me share this again. Somewhere, somehow. Going to select that one. On or about June 23rd, 2023, Brianna Banks, certified peace officer with Pullman, still with Pullman Police, Coy Newman, interesting. Found to engage in conduct that failed to meet ethical and professional standards required of a peace officer, disrupted, diminished, or otherwise jeopardized public trust or confidence. On or between January and May 2023, Banks engaged in conduct that failed to meet the ethical and professional standards. Okay. With the intent to embarrass or harm another law enforcement officer, sent anonymous and harassing text messages and emails to the officer's chief, spouse, and to media outlets, and misleadingly told Whitman County Sheriff's Office and others she sent an anonymous email to the officer's chief. Okay. Now, I don't know if this is the Brady violation because there was, I certainly remember some media reports from Pullman Police regarding the Idaho 4 case that had Brianna Banks' name on it. Interestingly, she took a plea agreement and is now still serving on the Pullman Police just under her maiden name or a different surname, but she's still there, same photo, different name. How convenient. It was 2025. Let me see. I could be here all night. I'm going to drop that one and we'll have a look here. Whitman County Prosecuting, that is Muckrock's great. If you don't know Muckrock, muckrock.com, you can find FOIA documents. It just happened to come up in my search once, and now it is a good source of actual documents. A lot of avoidant techniques from different agencies, unfortunately, but when they do have documents, they're the real documents. Interesting. Lorraine Inez 4301. Remember, national security. That is what they put the case down to. Now, what's happening in the Northwest region that is of national security at that particular time? There's if we look at the cults, which unfortunately we have to, Teragram, Order of Nine Angles, there's a few others. We're going to get into that in a later live because that's really full tinfoil hat mode. But the attacks on power substations, which were done by, there's independent cells operating under this Teragram. They use Telegram to corral together as an organization. The Order of Nine Angles has certain rituals. We could go right down the rabbit hole with the cults, but we don't have all the receipts to really go into it yet. We're looking at it. If Steve is so disgusted with Bill Thompson, why is he just talking smack about him at every chance, but only going after WSU? Is there nothing he can go after with BT? I don't even need to use a word, but maybe. They weren't getting any giant payout. That's our theory. No payout, move to WSU. Now WSU lawyer up. We just wonder what's next. Now, interesting. Yeah, so Lucy Morningstar said, yes, I saw that power station around the time. It's happening a lot across a number of regions, and they're linking it to this Telegram cult. Few incidents happened in Washington, and it's really, we keep switching over the borders back and forwards because there's so many different things that happen around this time. Wagstaff and Carnell, the attorneys suing WSU. Green and nuclear stuff. Interesting. I want to know more about the green and nuclear stuff because there is a lot of crossover when I look at some of the names, including when I was looking for Gideon's, that link back to the Idaho National Lab and some of the programs happening there. Now, the problem is I have lots of loose threads. Some of them connect. Some of them are still sort of trying to find the right path. INL, the largest reactor on the planet. Thank you for the reminder. Leah Story 993. When I think of cults, I think of Greek system starting Freemasonry. Interestingly, if I can find the documents, and again, I'm going to have to dig into the older files. Just while I do that, quickly on the Idaho National Lab, there seemed to be some crossover with Schweizer Engineering, if anyone knows anything about Schweizer and what's going on there. Hopefully I can find the document I'm looking for. So completely disorganized tonight, and I just thought, just start a live, see how it flies. Apologies if there's two running and things are going sideways, but we'll just go with it, roll with it. It's not that document. Moving on. How on earth do we even make our way through this many freaking documents? That's going way too far back. Federals. Could look at some of the area night stuff, but I'm looking for the Idaho National Lab. Maybe my search might work. I'm on a different device. If you didn't already hear me earlier, I'm on a different device and struggling because I don't have the recent files that I've been putting together and just having to go with my old notes. But if you remember that there was an award given to Maori and Fox for their hard work on their digital forensics in this case, which was interesting. It was given to them by a guy, Ulrich. Ulrich. Secret Service. Ulrich in Kootenai County, again, happens to be working for the Secret Service, and he's the one that gives the award. He is also a Freemason. And yes, I have the receipts for that. I just have to find them again. I'm losing my mind. I think this case is making us all crazy. Certainly it is difficult to navigate through so many freaking files. Let me see, I have images of it, if I can find them. I have 60 billion videos of the Goncalves. And little ones there, special forces. That's what we got here. I unfortunately have a lot of unnamed files because I had a hard drive crash. RJ coming in hot. What do we got? Thank you for the positive feedback. Yeah, it's a little bit crazy to try and find stuff. Idaho 4 files. Frats. Okay. Trafficking. Let's look at 2022. No, I'm not finding it. So around November, yeah, only 55 terabytes to go. And it's just interesting because there was one of the things I did in a video previously around the informant. So what about the fact that there was an informant in the house? We can make suggestions as to who that was. There's also the fact that, according to the reports, they couldn't get into Kaylee Goncalves' phone. However, and you'll see it in a News Nation interview with Steve G, he says, we're the family that broke into the phone and we helped them. Interesting. If the law enforcement is saying in this report that they've never been able to get into her phone, and yet the G family can. Now, if we look at the crime scene photos and we look at the devices, multiple devices, and in Kaylee's room, there's one, I think it was a MacBook, an Apple device on the bed, and there was the other laptop which was in a box on the shelf, and that one apparently was encrypted. They couldn't get into it. According to what I've read in the reports, and I'll have to find, when I get my device back, I'll find the receipts for this, but it looked like it was one of the devices issued by Extreme Networks, being that she was doing the internship there. Just happens that the Extreme Networks website, when they have their annual page celebrating their interns, that there's no photo of her on there. It seems to have all disappeared around the same time that her LinkedIn profile disappeared. But an encrypted laptop for an intern prior to starting the job, they still haven't been able to access it. Lucy, they got into it. Are we talking about the phone or the laptop? Harvard responded with the key to Eric. Interesting. So they give the key to the encrypted device to a Freemason who works for the Secret Service. Make what you will of that. So I'm going to have, Lucy, I think we're going to have to do a live where you can actually fill me in on some of these things and we can talk through them, because there's a lot that's gone on here. Extreme Networks encryption key. So that was on the laptop. And yeah, my Aquamarine Sailing says, my giant book collection is alpha by author. I have an alphabetic, a folder alphabetized by name. Let me see if... No, this is the old hard drive I had to recover where I lost a whole bunch of files. But let's see if we can make something out of this. Okay, this is an interesting folder. Let me see if I can find if it's in here. You're all very patient with me. Now, I can't find what I was looking for, and I'll go down the rabbit hole this time of night. However, one of the names, when I'm looking at the alphabetized names, is to do with the DNA, specifically the item 1.1, the knife sheath DNA, that on the 18th of November, which is around 5:18 p.m., if I remember rightly, 5:18 p.m. on the 18th of November, the forensics lab were doing an intake of evidence that was report number 2, maybe 2, 3, and it had a resubmission of item 1.1, despite the fact that earlier in that particular day, or potentially the day before when they started doing the extract and requested to fully consume the samples from the sheath, item 1.1 was fully consumed during testing. And then around 4:30 that afternoon, case M2022-4870, John Showalter and Connor Chestnut and some, I'm trying to remember, was it Chestnut or was it Barenberg? John Showalter, the second case that was being led by Talbot of ISP, came into the same evidence custodians, just within an hour of each other. And yet the one that came an hour later from Moscow police had the resubmission of item 1.1 after item 1.1's been fully used. So what the fuck? And just happens to be someone called Arredondo. Shannon Arredondo, Meridian, Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, started working for the lab only around July that year. The Arredondo family in the Pacific Northwest. Now, again, a common surname. However, there are a lot of legal issues, drug trafficking issues, gang-related issues with the Arredondo family in that region. Another rabbit hole. Leslie and Billy. Lucy, I wonder if Kaylee's phone laptop have the same evidence as maybe Brian has on his, and that's why they got him. I would say no. I would say that there is some interesting stuff. Happening around extreme networks, specifically at that time, and with someone who was breaching the US sanctions on Russia as a result of the war with Ukraine. There were sanctions to prevent US companies from trading with Russia. And yet, in some of the missiles being launched on Ukraine by Russia, some of the hardware was Extreme Networks hardware. And it ends up that there was some online businesses that were kind of sort of multiple shell companies that were set up to serve that. And it just happens that Kaylee Goncalves was an intern for Extreme Networks during that time. There was a major cyber hack almost exactly around those dates, where it was the Clop Move It attack, and it was to do with a file sharing program, backup program that had infected a whole bunch of organizations, including extreme networks, the Idaho medical hospitals, schools, universities, millions of breaches. So that's all going on. So there's some issues with cyber activity. At the same time, only, and this is the big one for me, when we're looking at the economics of this case. Looking at the economics of the fact that the FTC, Sam Friedman, the takedown of multi-billion-dollar crypto marketplace happens just 48 hours before the homicides. And if we look at the prevalence of cryptocurrency in drug trafficking organizations, their reliance on more anonymity by using cryptocurrency for transactions, there seems to be a little bit of overlap there. One of the other things around the street level distribution networks is their use of common payment solutions for microtransactions. If we look at the fact that what was withdrawn from the exhibits was the bank accounts, the fact that all people within that house at 1122 King Road had 7 bank accounts each. All 7, all of the people there had the same 7 banks, one account for each of them at these 7 banks. And there's this trend amongst that particular social circle and in university and many other social circles around Venmo payments. Venmo is quite closely linked to crypto wallets. I'd love to buy a Hex hat, burn it at the stake. I'm not saying that these are connected, but it's like anything in this case, we can't rule it out. Bring receipts to show that it's not, because there's not enough answers. The Hex cryptocurrency full Ponzi scheme. There are so many Ponzi schemes, and this is the thing that really comes back to, for me, Joshua Hurwitz. His role in the OCDTF, not just around the racketeering and drug trafficking organizations, but also around the human trafficking, sex trafficking, child trafficking, but also the financial crimes. So on another night, I'm going to go into some of the interesting timelines between all of these things, the individuals who would be active in those particular indictments. And if we look at cryptocurrency, and I have not found the direct familial link, but there is a certain individual by the name of Flavio Goncalves, a cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme called Empires X, happened kind of around the same time. Don't know if there's a relationship there, but there's just too many coincidences. There can't be that many coincidences in this case. Like, some of these things are going to land. The question is which. Yeah, bang, bang, GGGGG. 7 bank accounts each is wild and not normal for broke college kids. Yeah. Not normal for anyone, really. Why would you need 7 different banks? Because if you've got cash economy going on and you need to move that money somewhere, there's a certain limit to transactions that don't get flagged by federal registers. Put some in each bank, and by the time you get back to the next one, I mean, it's a little bit of extra work, but it's a little bit of extra cash. Interesting. Lucy Morningstar said, I could make a real strong argument that's why he was chosen to be the president. Chosen, not elected. In fact, I saw in one of the Idaho newspapers around the candidates that went and did the whole, shake hands, kiss babies, whatever thing on campus, and none of them get elected to the role. He gets hand selected for the role. I found that unusual. James Frazier, never had 7 bank accounts in my lifetime. No, I think over my lifetime I might have had almost 7 bank accounts at different times, changing banks, but no. Elijah Shute, one of Kaylee's bosses, he was bigwig at U of I. Let me see. I'm just going to have to randomly go on the comments and discussing those at the moment because I cannot find for the life of me the documents I was trying to find. But while I do, here's a quick one to share with you. States ranked by total crime rates. New Mexico, Colorado, Louisiana, Washington, 4th on the list. Oregon, 5th on the list. Idaho's last. How'd you like that? Good on you, Idaho. Because, do you know why? Because they don't report it. Simple. How you get the good stats is don't report the bad things. Just found that interesting. Justine, you would have to hire someone to keep track of 7 accounts. Now, I'm sure it's in here somewhere. I'm going to find it, goddammit. It'd be a lot easier if I had audio working for some of these videos because at the moment I'm just having to scan through some of my documents to find what I'm looking for, but I'm going to start doing these more regularly, so maybe next week we'll have it all sorted. I'll do a test run before then, and thank you for those who persevered this evening. Okay, this... Okay, so Hello, Artie. Yes, we do lives, not often, hopefully more often, and maybe eventually Ruby will join me. But we're going to try, and we're in WA, just the Australian WA, not the Washington state. Leslie and Billy, there is also green in Epstein files, but I think it's spelled green with an E. Now, that's kind of where some of the stuff was going. If we look at the ownership of what just happened. Do you know, Birdie, that is one of the first of three super chats that we have ever got on our channel. That's wild. Thank you. That's very nice. We are doing well. Just lost my device to Apple for a few days, so winging it, and don't have audio on videos and stuff. So we're just kind of going through some of the random things that I've got on my computer, on my old drive. The names do ring a bell of 11:30 p.m. in Tasmania. Look, I did a morning live with Glitch, which was 9 p.m. her time and 9 a.m. my time. I'm not that much of a morning person. Maybe I'll switch and do one of each, because it does end up getting quite late. Okay. Let's see if we can get back on track with something that actually I can find. I just love how professional the police are. I mean, if we go to Post Falls Police, let me just share this one with you. This is just a quick one. There you go. Beautiful. Now, what I will want to try and find is the next part of the PSYOP, and God damn it if there's not so many things that could tell us it's a PSYOP. Caldwell Police Department. Caldwell Police Department having a number of issues. Number of issues with corruption. Oh my God, thank you. Jen 7S, thank you for the super chat. That's unexpected, but very nice. Thank you. So, is it a PSYOP? In my view, highly fucking likely. There's a particular individual who, I'm going to have to pull it up in my browser so I don't talk off the top of my head, because I'm losing track of. Okay, so I'll bring this up in a second once I find the right thing. Okay. It is here somewhere. Bear with me. I found the image. I'm just having to see if I can get a better quality one. Search by image. Oh, Ali Tally, $10 super chat. Thank you. Not the Labrador. So, Caldwell Police. Caldwell Police. There is an officer here, let's see if there's a better photo, maybe that one. Selena Mortensen. Selena Mortensen, Caldwell Police. Images. Just going to make sure I get an image that is actually usable. Bear with me one tick. Okay, it is not a decent size, but you can still kind of see it. Let me just open this up here. Here's a picture of Selena Mortensen from Caldwell Police. And it's a very low quality picture. I've had to zoom in quite a bit. But if you have a look here, and if you find this image, the original image, this has been manually drawn over with the name Mortensen painted on there. Now, not a direct clone of a surviving housemate, but again, wild speculative theory, perhaps there is a surviving informant in the house. Just saying that I will find the better quality image when we get the device back next week. I won't be such a rambling, incoherent mess, but we will keep doing this just to break the ice and actually get used to doing some of the lives and talking about the case. If anyone wants to join me and talk about a particular thing or have some ideas, you're welcome to send us an email and we'll schedule something in. I'm going to put the email in the chat here, truthneurons@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. I'm thrilled to see so many people in the chat, and hopefully we'll get Ruby to actually join me in one of these lives very soon as well. Yeah, you heard me.
Yeah.
Ah, dear. There's just so many things that have gone on in this case that don't make sense. And even just trying to organize the files in this case. No, that's all Delphi. We'll get to Delphi. What happens when the brightest researchers' minds focus on something like Idaho? They aren't paying attention to the BS laws passing and loss of freedom. I think you got cut off with your comment there, TJ, about can you do a vid on the stuff you found? Oh, and we missed a bit. Hunter, Commonwealth versus Hunter, shared a post around that particular case. It does change some of the case law precedents regarding appellate rights, especially when there has been constitutional violations or procedural issues. Just has to be proven that it was misconduct or something. Again, brain's failing me at this point. It's interesting, Max, the warehouses. On the warehouses. So there was the Jesse James Bailey and Candace Bailey had a warehouse in Washington. I'm trying to remember exactly where. There are a number of things happening regarding the Aryan family in Washington around that time. I will just have to find the information again. We'll have to come back to it. Lone Wolf series will come back. I think come up to number seven. But then my device had a few issues, so that's coming back. Lucy Morningstar, throwing feed to the chickens. That's exactly what I've been thinking, is every time that something's happening in this case, some documents are getting unsealed, or there's an expert that comes out and shares part of the case, is what's the timing? Why are things, when we look at this case from a wide view, is where is it resting in it? It's not resting on Brian. It's very little of this case resting on Brian. He seems to be peripheral to this thing, but okay, let's just see if I can find. I know I've got it here somewhere. Brady violations, that's another thing. MPD images. Not those. There's the forensic image analysis photos that I did on the Brian's thumb photo to show that it's been heavily doctored. Okay. Man, we've gone down some rabbit holes. Here's someone that's come out of the limelight for a while, and just as I'm randomly going through some of the stuff trying to actually find my way, Jack Katovich. Twitter user claimed Ethan paid Jack Katovich on the night of November 12. They were friends, adding that Jack was the first donor to Ethan's GoFundMe. In chat, does anyone know what Ethan's GoFundMe was about? Because there are a lot of Venmo payments with the note 3:30 a.m. And this says Jack was the first donor to Ethan's GoFundMe for only $6. So is Ethan the one that set up the GoFundMe that everyone was paying for 3:30 a.m.? Sarah, you're talking about GitHub's, say, does Crazy Good backend dev? Is that around the crypto Empires X stuff, maybe? Yeah. Bertie Ferguson, shadow economy runs a town from the top down. It's more than corruption. Well, yeah. If you look at there's discussions on the body cam regarding the University of Idaho and the economics, because if it came out that Greek life were responsible for these homicides, no parent's going to send their kid back to the university. The entire town is run on the economy of the university. The cafes rely on the student population. The businesses there, the rentals, the whole thing would collapse. It's economic. But why? I mean, this is the thing that still I'm struggling with, is where does that fit into the actual motive? There's got to be a motive somewhere by whoever the perpetrators are. Yeah, TJ, I wouldn't send my kids there either. I mean, firstly, it's a freaking long commute from Western Australia, but okay, I need to close tabs. Just like my brain, I have lots of tabs open, so I need to close some of these so we can continue with. I can't even find my old slide docs. This is just driving me up the wall. It's not in there. Trying to find the King Gonzo speech that I've got an image of somewhere, because it's just off the hook. It's not that one. Why is that ringing a bell? Interesting. Candace Kai 5241, Operation Paperclip. Secret US intelligence program following World War II that relocated 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians who were former Nazi and SS members to the United States to provide an immense advantage in rocketry and aerospace. And interestingly, it was there were a lot of actors, painters, musicians for World War II who staged some of the actions. Trying to remember the name of it. If put a 1 in the chat if you want me to do the full PSYOPs World War II military stuff, because I keep collecting more resources on that and have to just step away from being down the rabbit hole in the whole cyber intelligence. If I had audio tonight, I would have a couple of videos to play on that are just freaking wild. But we might need to leave that for next week. Interesting. AF is not Aryan family, US Air Force. Post-war propaganda, because at the end of World War II, they'd staged this thing where they had inflatable plastic rubber inflatable tanks, and they had audio recordings of movements to make it sound like there were certain battalions moving in certain areas as a distraction to the Germans. And then there was a whole relationship that formed between mainstream media and the military in putting particular messages out there. Around Harry Truman time, I think. I've actually just lost way too many files. Let's see if I go up a folder. Not that. Now, interesting, Kootenai County, Officer Spencer Mortensen. I'm just going back through some of my files now. I had some notes on that as well. And I think there was a decertification. Regarding some domestic violence cases, 2014, 2017-ish. No, these are all going back way too far. I have no idea what's happening on YouTube right now, but thank you, Taryn, for something. I have no idea what flow state is. We're just going with it. But yeah, I really do appreciate it. God, how many documents can we actually have in this case? If between the number of court documents themselves and the number of random rabbit holes that we've gone down. Let's go upper folder. Okay, people. That's not it either. Malwich. That is an interesting one. We've got some info on Malwich. I've just seen a comment from Sakura Smiles. Has anyone explored the possibility of familial connection between Brian Koberger and Nicholas Malwich? No, there's not. Nicholas Malwich is of one of the Indian tribal reservations from recollection. And there was a case I looked at, I'll have to find the receipt. Macan 21, you make a good point. I too love a good conspiracy. It has to be based on reality, proven with facts. And normally, as many of you might know, we would have receipts. I am on a backup device at the moment, so I'm struggling to find any of the receipts that I was hoping to go through. Stevens, Morgan, Jennings, Hurwitz. Not that. Christ almighty. Not finding anything I'm looking for. Nez Perce. Thank you, Kat. Yes. So it was only June, that doesn't seem right, June 15 for Hurwitz that he was appointed to the role. I'm just going to grab this and push it onto screen. Zoom in a bit. June 15, 2022, Josh Hurwitz sworn in as 32nd presidentially appointed United States Attorney after having been nominated by President Biden. I had in my head he was working in that role a lot longer. So we're saying that within 6 months.
Not long.
Is that right?
Yeah. He was only there a few months.
Only there a few months.
Wasn't there long.
That's around the same time. And again,
He was there to close the deal.
And again, no, not on the case, actually as the US Attorney.
Okay, I don't know.
June 15, 2022. And he's been an adjunct professor at University of Idaho College of Law. But around June 2022, he's appointed as the US Attorney. And around that same time is when Shannon Arredondo joins the Idaho State Police Forensic Services. Not to say those two are interlinked, but the placement of key individuals in this case around the same timing is intriguing to us. You can see here, Mr. Hood received the Director's Award for Excellence by a litigative team for his work as part of the team that successfully prosecuted United States versus Swenson et al. Securities and wire fraud arising out of the collapse. DBSI Inc. I have no idea who that is. There's also the Babachenko case, which was a case that Hurwitz did a presser on around the fake iPhones that were being sold through Amazon. There's a few linkages with Amazon and Arian indictments. There's too many threads that don't quite connect, but they weave together and then sort of come off the side and then split into multiple threads that might connect to something else. Yeah, Sarah, he came to shut it down, exactly. He's there, he's investigating drug trafficking organisations, child trafficking, sex trafficking, cyber crimes. He's the US attorney for the state of Idaho. So why would you go from being the key person for a very large team doing very big cases to then take on a role as an attorney in, dare I say it, smaller case, other than to shut it down? Because he gets there, shuts it down. I have to say, just very quickly, I appreciate anyone who's still on this live, considering that I'm not finding the documents that I was hoping to run through tonight. I'm just very grateful for all of you. Okay, what's this one? Oh, TJ, we all want to know who those cowboys were leaving the house. And those are the sorts of things that confirm that it's more likely a psyop than what we're being told, in my view. Now, look, I've got so many fucking theories on this case, but until we actually have some of the receipts or have those connections, we're not going to go and say it's this or it's this. But these lives are an opportunity for us to just throw it out there and see what sticks. Okay, Kids for Cash video in BK's tribe, Luzerne County. Why was a cop from Luzerne County in the Paramount Plus Cyber Sleuths docuseries? Don't know of that one. I do know about the Kids for Cash investigation. Oh God. Let's see. What can we find? Problem is, in this case, I keep finding myself in the FBI reading room or CIA documents, which is not quite useful at this point. They might link to something, but and all the documents that I do find, and this is why I still think that there was some internship through the Homeland Security program to sales that would justify the sealing of the documents and the lack of information that actually connects the things that we have found out in this case. That's not going to help me. Christ. Last 24 on the mic. Yeah, the Aryans do keep popping up in many, many ways. Now, I do have it in a receipt somewhere of the fact that Emma Bailey went on a little road trip with her mother. It's on her Facebook. and her mother is Facebook friends with Ashley Jennings. Then you have things like their court case, Emma Bailey and Demetrius Robinson getting thrown out for the fentanyl death that they caused by dealing fentanyl to them. I've got all these DEA things, but the ones that I'm actually trying to find that link one to the next are not coming up for me, which is frustrating. Interesting point you've made there, Sarah. Can't pronounce it. Sarah Karowowski, 5499, device inside the house. They had listening. There were rumours of that, and there are a lot of devices collected from that house, many more than would be needed by the number of residents there, along with the many bank accounts. The list, actually, that's what I should find, if I can find that list. I mean, I have a whole folder on the area notes, but we won't go down that path just yet. There's a lot of linkages between California and the Cascadia or Pacific Northwest region that I've got. But I want to go back up to Moscow police reports. Let me find them. Come on. Back to one, Terry the Tiger. So there's also one of the cases that we've been looking at is Austin Serb, who was the king of Boise, apparently, for drug trafficking. We're talking mid-2010s, 2014, 15, I think it was, who was getting deliveries via post, drug deliveries post, with the drugs put in, of all things, stuffed animals. And then we have our little friend Terry the Tiger, who happens to be in a lot of photos of the King Road residents and their social circle. Again, how are these things connected? Maybe. Not that one. No. Okay, this is looking better. Nope. what I could find, there is a evidence list PDF. It's got to be in here. Nope. I think unless there's something else we can cover, I might have to call it a night because I'm not finding the documents that I was hoping to find. Possibly because I have too freaking many of them and none of it's making sense to me at this point. If only the audio was working on videos, I could play you some very interesting stuff. But that might have to be a next week thing because I might have my shit together by then. Spent most of the day trying to get this device up and running so we could actually do a live tonight, and ran out of time to actually do any organisation. So I'm going to take one last stab at trying to find, sorry for the, pardon the pun, trying to find the right documents. It's got to be in here somewhere. What a fascinating live, watching someone struggle with their system to find documents. Idaho 4. Nope. Not that. Okay. Sarah, yes, send me the link of the DEF CON hacking conference. And I will lock in to do one of these each week. And actually, by next week, we'll have my device back. We'll actually have some of the documents together and not be a rambling mess. But I am very much appreciative of all of you tuning in and listening and joining in a conversation that has just gone in several different directions, sometimes all at once. And I will make sure that we've got audio for next week. Thank you for such, I'm a little bit gobsmacked at all the freaking lovely comments. And I'm going to have to call it a night because I'm struggling to find my way out of any of the documents or any of the folders that I've got that are not the ones that I would hope to present. I love seeing you all in chat, joining in on the conversations, and I will schedule something either tonight or tomorrow for next week. Look forward to seeing you then. Hopefully you can make it.